Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at some functional skills revision. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on the writing assessment and going to look at a key question to help you get ready for the exam. If you haven't done so already, please could you like and subscribe, it really does help us out when you do so. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to recall how to approach the writing exam, understand how to write a response, and then finally, apply your understanding to revise for your exam. Look at the exam question and attempt the challenges that follow. So as you can see there from the image that we're going to focus on the idea of the new year or the New Year's resolutions within our writing question. So our writing question says that it is a new year and you've been asked to write an email to a friend or family member regarding New Year resolutions and what you hope to achieve this year. In your response you should write clearly and concisely, structure your writing appropriately, use language effectively, have a good standard of spelling, grammar and punctuation. So the task I'd like you to think about, first of all, whenever you get a writing question similar to this, first of all, I'd like you to identify the TAP of the exam question. Now, if you're not too sure what we mean by this, we mean the topic, the audience, and the purpose. This is going to be really important because it helps you to break down specifically what the examiner is looking for you to write about in your response. The super challenge. Come up with 3 or 4 ideas to write about to structure the rest of your writing. Now, this is going to be really important because if you think about the typical word count, it's about 250 words typically. You need to make sure that you've got enough ideas to actually match the word count, as well as an intro and a conclusion. And then finally, for the mega challenge, look at the plan on the next slide and compare it with your own ideas. So hopefully you'll be able to come up with some ideas fairly quickly on this. If not, don't worry about it. You can use the ones on the next slide. It is important to try and think about being creative because the quicker you can come up with those ideas, the easier it's going to be to get started in the exam. Look at the plan. How do they compare to your own ideas? So first thing then, here are some of the typical ideas you could use for your paragraphs. So firstly we have reconnecting with friends and family. Now I thought this might be a good one because what generally happens, especially when you get older, it gets harder and harder to keep those relationships still going. So that might be a good thing to think about in terms of the new year. Getting more exercise. Again, that's quite a typical thing that a lot of people say for a New Year's resolution. Quitting a habit or addiction. Starting a new hobby. Starting a new course. Obviously thinking about the things that you want to change and progressing throughout the actual year. Now in terms of actually planning it, we need to think about some of our DeForest techniques. Now what I would do if it was me is I'd start thinking about some typical sentences that you can use to make sure that I'm just embedding some of those key language techniques that we've looked at in our previous videos. So first of all then, I'm going to say, who doesn't want to start the year right and make a few changes? So if you're not too sure what we mean by DeForest techniques, these are the integral techniques that you need to use in terms of things like persuasive writing or write to advise or inform. So we can see there that the technique we're using is a rhetorical question, which would be one of the R's in our DeForest techniques. Secondly, I believe it's important to start a new year with some goals in mind. Now, because it says I believe, I'm clearly stating an opinion. So again, from a DeForest technique, that would be the O, as I'm clearly stating my opinion on a topic. Thirdly, it can be fun and fantastic to begin a new hobby. Why not get involved yourself? So what I've done here is actually what we might consider more high-level writing. Rather than just use one technique in this sentence, I've actually used 2. So I have alliteration with fun and fantastic. So if you're not sure what we mean by that, alliteration is where you're repeating the same letter 2 or more times in closely connected words. And I've also got a rhetorical question at the end there as well. And then we've got, I've always wanted to learn to play the guitar. The instrument fills my heart with joy. Now, hopefully you've came up with a few ideas yourself. It's a good idea to kind of compare them with the ones I've came up with. If any of these sound like they're good ones or ones that you think would be good to include in your own writing, please do use them later on when we look at our final writing task. Look at the example response and attempt the challenges that follow. Hi Dan. I know it's been a long time since we last spoke, but I thought there's probably no time like the present, and what could be a better time than New Year to get back in touch. I'm writing to you because you were always there for me growing up, I'd like to share my New Year's resolutions with you. The first thing I'd like to do is spend more time with the old gang. I miss having that time with you all, and even if I don't like to admit it, I do get too focused on work sometimes and forget to have fun. It was always fun playing footy in the five-a-side team we had, and I miss the fun feeling of having some proper exercise to do once in a while. Secondly, I'd like to get more exercise this year. I do miss all the fun we had at footy, but to be honest, I need to do it for my health. It's a bit of a cliche these days, but I do seem to be getting a bit of a dad bod, probably due to having too many mince pies. Now that we've had a look at the response, we're going to look at the feedback given by the teacher and see if you can actually agree with the comments that have been made once the teacher had given their feedback. So on the right hand side then you'll be able to see the same response that we just looked through, and what the teacher has done is they've actually marked some of the key aspects that need to be changed in the colour red. So we'll go through the feedback now then. So teachers' comments then. www. Now whenever we put that, it's a very common thing that you might see on marked work by a teacher. It means what went well. So the first thing that we'd identify here is that the response has been written in the correct form, which if you think back to the question and thinking about the TAP, the topic, the audience and the purpose, will be that you need to give an informal email. The next thing that has worked well is the learner has used language somewhat effectively. Now it's important to note that the teacher said somewhat effectively, which means that they've started to use quite good language, but it's not really where we need to be for a high level level 2 or even GCSE English response. And we can see that with things like there's a lot of emotive language in there, they've used some rhetorical questions, and they're starting to think a little bit more about the actual main body of the writing as well. The response has been well structured, so by that we mean that it's been set out in an appropriate manner and it's been written in paragraphs. EBI then, so this means even better if. So these are the things that the learner would need to do in order to get a higher mark. So the first thing that's been identified by the teacher is that a learner needs to use a range of effective adjectives, and you can see where a few of these have been identified. If you have a look at the actual response, the word fun has been used a lot of the time. And really what the examiner has done there is by marking it out is by saying that really we need to think about other synonyms that you can use to maybe use some more effective adjectives to fully convey how the person's feeling and fully get the message across to the reader. Next, the learner may need to improve some of the grammar, so it has some issues with homophones. So if you're not too sure about this, do check out our other video that goes through homophones and homonyms in more detail. Essentially, a homophone is a word that sounds the same but has a different meaning, and we have this with words like no, were and there. So it's important that you're aware of those kind of typical things that people often do get wrong. Those are going to be clear indicators for things like level 1 and level 2 in terms of are you using the correct kind of grammar or even the correct spelling in your writing. Next, the response should use a capital letter for New Year as it is a proper noun. So you can see it's done it at the start where it says what could be a better time than New Year to get back in touch, but it hasn't done it when it says to share my New Year's resolution, so it should still have capital letters in that case as well because it is classed as a proper noun. Now that we've been through quite a few different things regarding this response, what I'd like you to do is to use everything we've covered so far and attempt the following challenges. So first of all then, I want you to look back at the writing task and try and write your own response. Now think about the one that we've just read, think about some of the things that were positive about it, some of the things that were negative about it, and also about the plan that we looked at the start. For the super challenge, I want you to try and use at least 4 DeForest techniques in your response. Now if you're still not sure what we mean when we say DeForest technique, please do check out our other videos that go through that in more detail. And then finally, for the mega challenge, submit your response for marking and make sure you get some feedback from your teacher. Now, if you've got no one to provide you any feedback, then please do join our membership, and then that's going to allow you to have access to a whole host of benefits, including feedback and marking features as well. Next lesson. So in the next lesson, we're going to cover the following things. So we're going to recall the writing question from this lesson, and we're going to talk about how people got on. Hopefully you're able to submit it and get some feedback, and again if not, you can always submit it to me and I'll try and give you some feedback on that as well. Understand how to craft an effective response. Again, this is going to be really important because out of all of the assessments, there's obviously reading, writing and speaking and listening, it tends to be the writing assessment that people will struggle with the most. And then finally, you're going to apply your understanding to draft and edit your own response to the exam question as well. So we're going to be just keep looking at more and more writing questions. We're going to get used to those and all the different forms of writing questions that may come up for the actual assessment as well. Now, if you need any additional support or help, the new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, leave us a comment below or visit our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching, for more lessons and guidance on all things English. Thanks ever so much if you've stayed with the video this far, guys, and all the best with your work and revision in the future. Bye bye.